2,000 years ago, in the age of myth, there lived a man who laid waste to entire kingdoms and slew even the gods themselves. He was the dreaded Demon King. Today, several youths receive summons to attend the academy that gathers the descendants of the Demon King's bloodline. Legend says that 2,000 years after his death, the Demon King will reawaken and reincarnate into one of the new students. The following day, as the teens make their way to the academy, a distracted girl named Misha is shoved by bullies, causing her to drop her admission letter. At that moment, a handsome black-haired lad named Anos Voldigod, our protagonist, picks up the letter and returns it to Misha. Suddenly, both their parents begin cheering and urging their children to pass the entrance exam. Later, a bully named Zepes attempts to harass them, but they pay him no mind and continue on their way. This enrages Zepes, who rebukes them for not knowing who he is. Anos turns around and responds that his magical power is so insignificant he hadn't even noticed it. Furious, Zepes unleashes his magic and threatens them with death if they do not beg for their lives. But Anos, with a simple breath, extinguishes Zepes' flames and uses his magic to paralyze him. Then he calmly enters the academy. An owl informs that the exam consists of a duel between applicants and the winner will gain admission. When his turn comes, Anos enters the stadium and sees his opponent is Zepes. Just then, Anos tries to use the same spell he used before to immobilize him, but this time it has no effect. Zepes tells him the armor he's wearing blocks any kind of magic. Then he draws out a powerful magical sword from the mythical era, which amplifies magic power tenfold. Zepes quickly charges to attack Anos, but when he gets close, Anos blows out Zepes' flame, astonishing all the students with his power. Anos tells Zepes they are not evenly matched, so to give him an advantage, he will not move, use magic, or utter spells, and still defeat him without blinking. Zepes listens and thinks it's all talk. He's convinced his armor is invulnerable to magic. But suddenly, he's struck by an attack from Anos that leaves him reeling. Our hero then explains he's attacking him with the beats of his heart. Anos tries to withdraw, but Zepes tells him the battle isn't over and he has no plans to surrender. So our hero moves in closer. With a quick flick of his fingers, he knocks Zepes out of commission. However, since this isn't a fight to the death, but rather a magic school entrance exam, if Zepes dies, he would lose. Therefore, he uses a spell to revive him. Though taking blow after blow, Zepes refuses to give up, so Anos keeps defeating and resurrecting him over and over. This leaves all the students' jaws dropping as they watch Zepes get trounced with such ease. After a few more beatdowns, Zepes finally drops to his knees and accepts defeat in tears. The scene changes, and students are measuring their power levels. Misha scores over 100,000, leaving everyone agape. When it's Anos' turn, it shows a 0, and the crystal shatters. Misha is stunned and tells him she's never seen someone with so much power they broke the crystal. He asks how she knew, and she replies she has a magical eye. After this, they face the next challenge, a test of their knowledge. After acing the exam, our hero, Anos, invites Misha to his home to celebrate. He takes her by the hand and uses teleportation magic, leaving Misha stunned because this kind of magic was lost 2,000 years ago. They arrive at his home in a blink of an eye. His mother greets them, congratulating them on their academy acceptance and expressing how proud she is of Anos. Anos then introduces Misha to his mother, who gets overly excited as Anos, who is only a month old, has brought a girl home. His father suddenly shows up and joins in the celebration. Afterward, Anos escorts Misha back to her place. He comments on how much her parents resemble his, but Misha reveals that the man isn't her father, just her caretaker. Misha tells Anos that he's been very kind to her. Hearing this, he laughs and says people don't usually describe him that way, telling her that he's often told his existence brings no good. Upon hearing this, Misha stops and comforts him. At that point, Anos tells her they're friends now. Misha's face lights up, but you can see a spark of surprise in her eyes. Kinda like she was hoping he'd say she was his girlfriend or something more than just a friend. their joy is cut short as they are suddenly trapped in a battle arena. Zepes appears, along with his older brother, furious that a half-breed dared to humiliate a noble. Zepes' older brother, feeling disgraced that Zepes lost to Anos in the academy exam, kills Zepes out of sheer humiliation. The older brother and his gang take on Anos, but they're no match for him. Anos uses magic to bring Zepes back from the dead as a zombie, but he's got a plan up his sleeve. He wants to teach Zepes' brother a lesson. A zombie is super strong, immune to magic, and has some serious power. Anos tells him if he yells out Zepes' name, zombie Zepes won't kill him. It's a test of the brotherly bond that seems to have been lost in a haze of anger and shame. The older brother calls out his brother's name, but zombie Zepes doesn't stop and ends up killing him. Anos is bummed out to see how over 2,000 years, family love has gotten lost, which is why even though he tried to appeal to Zepes' brotherly feelings, it didn't work. After the entire stadium came crashing down, our main guy stepped up, restoring the entire scene and even bringing the brothers back to life. When the big question was popped, who the hell was he? He just casually mentioned he was the reincarnation of this big-shot demon king Anos Voldigod. Yeah, that's right. The same one who, way back in the mythical era, got so fed up with all the fighting that he decided to go ask the hero Canon to help him out. With Canon's help, they managed to separate the four worlds, allowing everyone to chill and live happily for a good long while. And now, Anos Voldigod is back, just taking a look at how his era of peace turned out. Fast forward to the day after the showdown with the Noble brothers, our hero walks into his first day of class, but things feel a little off. Misha clues him in that his uniform now carries a new symbol at the academy, signaling he's not fit to be the Demon King. This leaves our guy totally puzzled, so he asks Misha for the Demon King's name. She answers, Abadilgevia, which only confuses him more, making him wonder if the name has been wrongly passed down for the last 2,000 years. Later on, the class tutor announces they'll be having a group test, so some students have to step up as leaders by raising their hands. Immediately, we see our main man lifting his, but the tutor tells him only nobles can lead. Right then and there, he shows he's no less than a noble, leveling up a type of magic the teacher had used. Impressed, she lets him be the leader of his own group. Afterward, each leader has to introduce themselves to everyone. Here's where we meet Sasha, who is Misha's sister. After our hero's introduction, the rest of the students must pick a team, but nobody wanted to join his group, except for Misha, of course. Later, Sasha sidles up to them and tells our hero that Misha is his only teammate, but she disses her as a useless doll because she has no soul and is only moved by magic. To this, our hero replies that if she thinks that way, she doesn't understand the true essence of magic. Sasha gets irked by this and activates the Eye of Destruction skill. However, this doesn't faze our guy, who shows he can also pull off the same trick. After all this, he calmly takes a seat. Later on, at the outskirts of the school, our hero crosses paths with Sasha yet again. This time, she challenges him to a group test where the loser has to obey the winner. Without a moment's hesitation, our guy eagerly accepts. Fast forward to a week later when the test begins. The win condition? Either incapacitate the leader of the opposing group or disable their magic first. However, right off the bat, our hero appears in Sasha's stronghold. With a mere flick of his hand, he sends everyone flying and the fortress crumbling in the process. Sasha then tries to coordinate a group attack with her team, but our hero, barely even tapping into his power, effortlessly overpowers them. Just like that, the test is over in a blink of an eye. As the loser, Sasha agrees to join our hero's team. Post-exam, they all head to our hero's place for a meal, and later he drops them off at their home. That's when Misha says her goodbyes, and Sasha plants a thank you kiss on our hero. Why the gratitude? Well, thanks to him, she managed to reconcile with her sister. Days later, Misha asks our hero about a suitable birthday gift for Sasha. He responds that Sasha would appreciate any gift, as long as it comes from Misha herself. Following their conversation, the class teacher announces that today's lesson is special since it'll be conducted by Ivys Necron, one of the 7 demonic aristocrats. These aristocrats are the direct subjects of the Demon King, born from his very blood. So when Ivys enters the classroom, our protagonist greets him like an old friend. However, it's clear that Ivys doesn't recognize him and can't recall who he is. Choosing to take matters into his own hands, our protagonist decides to extract the memories from his subject from 2,000 years ago. But he stumbles upon something odd. It's as if Ivys has no memory of him at all. They agree to meet privately later to discuss this. In this meeting, Anon explains to Ivys that his past memories have been altered, and that's why he believes his king is named Avos Dilhevia. But Ivys decides not to trust him. He recalls certain things that only Anon could do, but he's conflicted. He decides to stay neutral until he can understand what has really happened. So for now, he remains neutral. Later on, the group faces a challenge within a dungeon maze. The task is to gather weapons and equipment, each granting points. However, our protagonist chooses to play it cool. If he can get the scepter from the altar, he'll score the highest points, and he knows exactly where it is. After all, this dungeon was his castle 2,000 years ago. So, after navigating through various hidden passages, they reach the altar and secure the scepter. Next, our hero leads Misha to a hidden room brimming with treasures at the altar. He asks her to pick a gift for her sister Sasha, whose birthday it is. Despite Sasha's previous cruelty towards her, Misha has a soft spot for her and has forgiven her past transgressions. Misha chooses the phoenix robe, and with robe in hand, they return to the altar. While Anon stays in the hidden room, Misha hands the robe to Sasha. Suddenly, our hero finds out that Sasha has stabbed Misha. Sasha confesses that she pretended to be friends with both to win the challenge. Even though she tries to flee, Anon stops her and reveals that he's already healed Misha. He demands the truth from Sasha. Misha recovers and asks him to forgive Sasha. Sasha escapes with the scepter, leaving Misha and Anon alone. Misha reveals that she never truly existed, that she's part of Sasha and will disappear at dawn on her 15th birthday to rejoin Sasha. Her final wish is to reconcile with Sasha, and Anon agrees to assist. Sasha always cared about Misha. Despite growing up together, Misha was never able to enjoy a normal life. She couldn't go out. She had no friends. Sasha wanted Misha to have a chance at a full life when the spell activated, not herself. This is why she mistreated her. Sasha wanted Misha to reject her, making it easier for her to accept her new life and fully embrace it. Sasha knew this process would be tough for Misha, but she firmly believed that Misha deserved the chance to live a normal life. Anon tells them that there's still a way to save both. For him, nothing has ever been impossible, even when it means going against the god of death and the god of time. The solution? Sending them back in time to exist as two separate beings. They embark on this journey to the past, but their mission is interrupted by the god of time, who won't allow them to change what has already occurred. This is when Ivys comes into play, assigned by the god of time to halt Anon's plans and given the power of time itself. A titanic clash between these supreme deities ensues, a battle so intense it transcends both time and space. Meanwhile, Sasha and Misha successfully journey back in time and create two individual souls. In the midst of this chaos, Anon unveils his sacred sword, a weapon of such magnitude and rarity that few gods have ever laid eyes on it. With its devastating power, he manages to vanquish Ivys. But after the dust settles, Anon revives Ivys with his original memories restored. Ivys, realizing what he's done, apologizes and explains that he had been possessed by an unknown entity that had wiped out his memories. Anon presents Ivys with an intriguing offer: to become his spy. Meanwhile, the sisters manage to survive and start seeing our main character as the real Demon King. Plus, Anon gifts Misha a ring for her birthday. The next day arrives, and Anon's team anxiously awaits their score from the previous exam. However, their tutor Amelia informs them that the scepter was stolen before it could be examined. Hence, they won't receive the maximum score. At this point, a half-blood girl named Misa challenges Amelia's decision, considering it unfair treatment towards Anan because of his half-blood status. Anan steps up, mentioning they only need to find the thief. It doesn't take him long to identify a classmate hiding the scepter, takes it from him, and hands it over to Misha. Anan approaches Amelia and tells her that if she planned to steal the scepter, she should have planned better. After this incident, Amelia announces that they will have fencing lessons the following day with two aristocrats named Gaius and Idol, and will be joined by a new student known as the Holy Swordmaster. Later, Misa approaches Anan to thank him for defending her. It's here we learn she's part of the Unitarists, a group advocating for equality between nobles and half-bloods. Plus, they see Anan as the true demon king. Because of this, our heroes group decides to visit the Unitarists' headquarters. Upon their arrival, fans go wild seeing Anan. Misa and the other girls ask to join his team, but Anan tells them they must prove their determination. The next day, the students find themselves battling in fencing class. The test is to pull a sword from the ground, but no one succeeds. No one but Anan, who does it effortlessly, and Ray, the new guy on the block. In class, Ray approaches the protagonist, introduces himself as Ray Glenzudley, and wants to join his team. He receives the same rejection as Misa. Ray needs to show his determination, so the protagonist challenges him to form a team with the Unitarists for a contest the next day. The day of the test arrives, and Misa and the other girls are amazed at Ray's attitude. Despite his noble status, he treats them as equals, none of the scorn common to his class. The test begins, and Anan decides to face Ray with nothing more than a stick in his hands. Meanwhile, Sasha and Misha battle against the Unitarists and realize they have both become stronger since they managed to become independent souls. During the fight, the protagonist sees Ray improving as they spar and starts to enjoy the duel like he hasn't in a long time. In the end, Anan defeats his opponent, and Ray confesses that he feels as if he's known him from before. He suggests they might have met 2,000 years ago, hinting that Ray might have been his right-hand man in a past life. We remember his right-hand man was a master swordsman, but when faced with the water spirits, Anan made him an offer. If he could beat them with a single blow, he'd grant him any wish. His companion succeeded, and his wish was to reincarnate, even though Anan warned him he'd lose all his memories since he couldn't control root magic. But his right-hand man was willing to start from scratch. After passing the test, Anan accepts Misa and Ray as his subordinates, inviting them over for a meal at his house. Later in class, it's revealed that the magic sword tournament is approaching, to which both Anan and Ray have been invited. Later, Misa takes Anan to meet the aristocrat who leads the Unitarists. At the group's headquarters, they bump into Mr. Melheis, who recognizes his king. During this encounter, Melheis admits he lost his memory but could recognize Anan through his soul. He also advises him not to participate in the upcoming tournament. Later, Anan heads to a cat cafe with Misha and bumps into Ivis there, who is posing as a cat to gather information about Melheis. Ivis informs him that Melheis isn't really the leader of the Unitarists. He mentions there's someone else behind this and also comments that things are pretty strange at the clinic. So Anan decides to head over to the clinic, and soon after, Ray arrives because he came to visit his mother. As Ray doesn't seem his usual self, Anan tells Ivis to look into him as well. On the next day, we see the tournament kicking off, and our hero's dad hands him a sword he's forged himself. With this new weapon, he faces off against teacher Amelia's brother, and after a brief fight, our hero shatters his opponent's weapon, thereby winning the first round bout. Before he leaves, he warns his adversary not to underestimate the sword his dad made. From the break room, we see that Ray also won his first match. And not only that, but he now represents a noble organization, having signed a contract that puts his life at risk because he wants to save his mom. After several fights, both our hero and Ray move on to the grand finale of the tournament. The girls and their dads congratulate them, and our protagonist decides to leave the sword in his mom's care, as it's forbidden to switch swords. Later, our hero and Misa visit Ray's mom, who suffers from a disease that hasn't existed for 2,000 years. There we find out that Ray's mom is a hybrid, like Misa, half infernal, half spirit, which leads us to understand that she's not actually the swordsman's biological mother. Just then, she wakes up and tells them that spirits are born from legends or rumors created by people. For this reason, Anon tries another way to save her with the help of Misa's soul. However, in the middle of the ritual, Misa notices something strange. On the other hand, we see that the Unitarians accompany Anon's mom on her way home, but they are intercepted by tutor Emilia, who asks them to hand over the sword. However, Anon's mom decides to resist, as her son asked her to look after the sword. So, tutor Emilia attacks Anon's mother using her magic, but the Unitarists intervene and hand Anon's sword to his mother. At that moment, all the girls get hurt, yet they keep standing up to protect Anon's mother until after several attacks, the Unitarists are completely burnt to ashes. Then, tutor Emilia also tries to end the life of Anon's mother. But at that moment, Anon comes to the rescue. He heals all the girls and then takes Emilia away to punish her. Once alone, Anon mortally wounds Emilia and tells her that if she pleads for her life and acknowledges him as the Demon King, he might forgive her, but Emilia refuses. So Anon eliminates her and curses her, reincarnating her as a half-breed. He tells her that she is now a half-breed, and upon seeing this, Emilia tries to take her own life, but Anon had put a curse on her so she cannot do it, and always remains as a half-breed, to learn that her ideas were only prejudices. After saying this, Anon leaves. On the other hand, we see Ray appear behind Misa at the clinic with a knife, asking her what she's up to. After finding out that Misa is trying to save her mother by risking her own soul, he decides to knock her out. The next day, the grand finale between Anon and Ray beginning. This time, they have to use special bracelets that absorb magic powers. However, we see this only affects Anon, and so the fight officially begins. We see Ray attacking him without holding back, and after several exchanges of attacks, the battle reaches its climax where both attack with all their strength. There, Anon loses an arm, but Ray is pierced by Anon's sword. Suddenly, they're transported to a dimensional prison, showing us that the person behind Ray's contract, that is, the one who had Ray under his influence, was Melheis. He explains to Anon that he's currently at a disadvantage as he lost half of his power with the bracelet. He's severely injured, and he has to face 3 aristocrats. However, Ray immediately gets up and defeats 2 of them, because we see that in reality, Anon didn't wound Ray, but destroyed the curse he carried in his chest. After a shocking revelation, Melheis shows Ray that he has his mother held hostage. Luckily, with the protagonist's help, Ray manages to jump into the dimension where his mother is. At this point, Anon and Melheis are drawn into a fierce combat. Melheis uses an ancient magic, the same that Anon used to split the realms. He intends to annihilate the protagonist with this. In an unexpected twist, he locks himself in a space only he can enter. From there, he takes the chance to attack Ray as well. Anon surprises Melheis and manages to rescue Ray's mother. Just when it seemed the protagonist was disappearing, he attacks Melheis, and suddenly the magic fades away again. Despite the odds, the protagonist manages to have the upper hand over Melheis. Then, Ray's mother performs a spiritual possession and transforms into a sword. Ray uses her to tear apart the dimension where Melheis is. This attack, however, results in the disappearance of Ray's mother. In a last desperate attempt, the protagonist summons his sword of destruction and lands the final blow. We find out that Melheis was being controlled by the false Demon King. We learn that Melgeis was possessed right after meeting the protagonist. Then, Anon orders Melheis to summon Gaios and Dol. He does so, and our hero extracts the weapons of the false Demon King's subordinates, that is, Avos Dilhevia, who is behind the possessions of the 7 demonic emperors, as we saw with Ivis. Before he can use them, a mysterious figure appears and destroys them. The protagonist asks him if he is Avos, but the figure does not respond and leaves. With no more options, Anon releases a spell that prevents the audience from seeing what happens, revealing himself as the winner of the grand final tournament. The protagonist announces his victory, thanking his father's sword. After all, his father was a great craftsman. Our protagonist cherishes his family a lot. That's why we see that he wants his father to feel proud. Anon heals Ray. The protagonist assures him that his mother is fine. In a final act of magic, he manages to bring her back, safe and sound. At that moment, Anon reveals that Ray's mother's existence lies within the sword, so all he had to do was spread the rumors and legends that make up her soul. This way, his notoriety reached the entire kingdom as the fight was broadcasted everywhere. Then, Sasha appears to deliver the prize to the winner, congratulating Anon on his triumph in the tournament, giving him a kiss on the cheek, and causing surprise to everyone in the stadium. Days after the event, a new teacher is summoned to replace Amelia. She informs the students that their next event will be in 3 weeks and mentions that third-year students will join this class. Additionally, she points out that the event will be held at the Human Kingdom's Hero Academy. Upon hearing this news, our protagonist decides to train Sasha, Misha, Ray, and Misa to prepare, and in the process, he offers subtle advice to each of them. Later, Anon meets Melheis, who reveals that he managed to resurrect Gao and Dole. So only 3 aristocrats remain in the service of Avos, the false demon king. Melheis, concerned, advises Anon to proceed with caution in the exchange selections. He explains that although the Heroes Academy was created to train youngsters who will shape the kingdom's future, it also offers special classes for the reincarnated hero, even in an era of peace. Subsequently, Ray visits Anon, and together they head to his castle. Ray needs a new sword, so he chooses a magic sword with the ability to change blades at will. After this, Anon mentions to Ray his resemblance to the human hero, to which Ray responds with a feeling of having lived in a previous era. After 3 weeks, the third-year students and Anon's group prepare to travel to the human world. The guide states they have 10 days to get there on their own, and those who don't make it in time will not be able to participate. However, Anon decides to use his magic and teleports his group, arriving on the first day. With plenty of free time, they decide to explore the city. Subsequently, our protagonist and Sasha head to the Heroes Academy. Just as they are about to enter, they are stopped by a third-year student named Bianca. However, she allows them to pass when Anon expresses his interest in the legend of the hero. After a tour of the academy, they arrive at the library, where Bianca recommends a book that narrates how Canon, the human hero, defeated the Demon King. Hearing this, Sasha gets upset, realizing that the facts have been altered, but Anon calms her down and proceeds to ask Bianca if she knows the Demon King's name. She answers that his name is Avio, confirming that in this world, they also believe Anon is not the king. Intrigued, Anon asks if Canon's reincarnation is at the academy. Bianca confirms it is, and that there are currently 4 of them, as the hero had 7 souls. This makes Anon question why none of them has objected to this incorrect version of history. Anon reveals his true identity as the Demon King to everyone. But at that moment, 2 of Canon's reincarnations appear, affirming that everything Bianca has said is true. Shortly after, the 3rd reincarnation arrives. Despite this, Anon doesn't believe they're part of Canon, so the 3rd one tries to prove otherwise with force. However, Anon easily defeats him with a simple blink. Subsequently, Bianca explains to Anon that Canon was eliminated by a human 2,000 years ago, so the Canon he knew might be different. After the 10 days, all the students who managed to reach the human world gather, and a third-year boy named Olivet argues with Anon, refusing to recognize him as the Demon King. All the students gather in the auditorium and meet the academy's principal, Diego. The latter arranges different objects on 2 tables for a student from each institute to perform a magic demonstration. On the human side, they choose the first reincarnation of the hero, and on the infernal side, they select the best of the 3rd year. The first reincarnation from the human kingdom chooses a sword, enhances it with magic, and uses it to destroy a stone doll. Next, the infernal representative tries to transform a rat into a monster, but his spell doesn't work. After several failed attempts, Anon stands up and accuses the humans of cheating, breaking the spell that was preventing his companion from turning the rat into a monster. Once released, the rat transforms into a gigantic monster, and at that same moment, Anon creates a sacred sword, leaving everyone astonished. The first reincarnation of canon recognizes Anon as the Demon King, but the rest of the infernal students deny it, sparking a huge argument. Later in the evening, Ivys informs Anon that he has been investigating all over the city. He reveals that no one knows that a human eliminated the hero canon. He also mentions that the graduates of the Heroes Academy talk about a day when darkness will come to their world, but the hero will appear with his spiritual sword to save them. Ivys suspects that this story might have been created to eliminate the Demon King when he returned. However, their conversation is interrupted when Sasha and Misa arrive to invite Anon to a festival. Later, during the celebration, Anon notices Ray and Misa together. He is about to approach them, but Sasha stops him, realizing that they both seem to have feelings for each other. Meanwhile, Ray thanks Misa for everything she has done for him and chooses a necklace as a reward, which he places around her neck. The next morning, the trial between the humans and the Infernals begins, which will take place under a sacred lake. They must first choose the participants. With no volunteers, Anon's group decides to compete along with the third-year students, led by Leaves. The duel begins, but the Infernals soon realize that their magic does not work correctly under the lake. This results in them being eliminated one by one. Then, Canon's reincarnations reach the Infernals' fortress and begin to destroy it. Seeing this, the tutor asks the director to stop the trial, but he pays no attention. Anon, seeing what is happening, rescues everyone from the lake. He tells Libes that he has done his part, heals him, and assures that he will take care of the rest. So our squad of heroes approaches the hero reincarnations and challenges them once more. They accept the dare, but this time around, our main guy sends out this powerful magic orb that just evaporates the entire sacred lake. That kicks off round 2 between the humans and the infernal crew. During the showdown, the humans whip up this barrier that weakens the enemies. So, our hero, along with Misha, sneak right in. Misha needs a solid 3 minutes to bring down that barrier, so it's key to shield her from those reincarnations during that brief window. And then, plot twist. A new human lady bursts onto the scene, joining the brawl. It turns out, she's the 4th reincarnation and the top gun of the academy. Despite her rep, our main guy holds his own against them all, letting Misha do her thing and smash that barrier. After a split, the third hero ends up toe-to-toe with Sasha. After a fierce clash, Sasha nails it and emerges as the champ. Meanwhile, Ray is duking it out with the second hero, flexing his new blade, showing off he can handle more than one weapon, and takes down the second reincarnation with their own gear. Later, our protagonist faces off against both the first and 4th hero reincarnations. Realizing there's still no match for the Demon King, they pull this move where they ask all the humans for some energy, powering up big time. They manage to stand their ground, but then our hero drops the mic, showing he can pull the same move too. To wrap it all up, the Demon King is like, "Yo, Unitarians, show me some love." They start singing and dancing for him, and in no time, our main guy takes the lead against the heroes again. The top-tier hero decides to pull off the ultimate sacrifice to take down the Demon King by blowing herself up. But then, plot twist, our main guy is unscathed. Shockingly, the girl comes back from somewhere, gearing up to make that big sacrifice again. But this time, our protagonist is having none of it and stops her. Right then, he starts hearing this voice telling him to head to a nearby temple. Turns out, this voice is the only one that can put a stop to her antics. Our hero decides to send Misha to do the temple run, but along the way, she gets ambushed by the headmaster. Dude wounds her with a sword, leaving Misha in a bad way. Just when you think she's done for, Anon swoops in, faces off against the headmaster, and with some slick magic, conjures up a barrier to shield Misha. Outraged by the protagonist's actions, the director morphs into a beastly monster, but gets taken down by Anon. Next, our main dude stumbles upon a place where he meets the voice, who turns out to be a girl trapped inside a magical barrier. Then we unravel that the human who took down Kano in the past was actually his own mentor, Jerga. This guy had a deep-seated grudge against the Infernals and tapped into a forbidden power to turn himself into magic, splitting his soul into 2 spells. The first spell ensures his resentment towards Infernals is passed down through generations. The second one, it's this girl, seen as a failure, since she doesn't hate demons. So they made her churn out thousands of soul clones. Just as things are getting intense, the director pops up again, trying to off our main guy. There's more. The remaining 3 aristocrats, along with Avos, take the legendary hero's sword. So get this. The director and some of the students are clones of this girl. That's why as long as she's alive, her clones can come back to life. And then they exchange a few words. Before leaving, Avos assures him he'll change the world. Days later, the principal announces that the Demon King has awakened, setting off a new war. On the other hand, Avos mobilizes the infernal forces, aiming to wipe out humanity. Hearing that both sides are heading for the border, Anon tells the aristocrats they don't have to come with him to stop the conflict. But determined not to let him face it alone, they join him alongside the friends the Demon King made on his journey. That night, Ray and Misa share an intimate moment. He asks her to keep half of a necklace they both share as a symbol of commitment, promising they'll return together. The next day, Anon gathers the group, urging them to prevent the armies from clashing, emphasizing that he doesn't want any casualties. Following his lead, they begin neutralizing as many soldiers as they can, while the aristocrats aligned with Anon confront the rest. But the game changes when Anon comes face to face with Avos. During their duel, he spots something around Avos' neck. It's Misa's necklace. Avos reveals his true identity. He's Ray. And not just that, he's also the real reincarnation of Canon. Ray shares that he altered his fate with his sword so that nobody would remember that Anon was the true Demon King. After Anon reveals his plan to Ray about dying as the Demon King, hoping humans would forget their grudges and peace would return, they realize words won't cut it. So Anon and Ray clash in combat. Ray doesn't hold back, but as the battle rages on, Anon destroys his souls one by one. With his last soul, Ray gives it his all, but finds out Anon let himself get stabbed. Ray is in shock. Anon breaks his barrier, puts on Avos' helmet, and orders his army to refrain from attacking until his reincarnation, asking everyone for peace. Ray declares the end of the conflict to the humans, and both sides retreat. But the principal, hungry for revenge, insists on wiping out the Infernals. The clone creator tries to stop him, to no avail. Jerga, transformed into magic, appears. Ray tries to fight him, but his magic is matched and proves ineffective. Meanwhile, Sasha and Misha, with Ivis' help, combine their powers. Shockingly, Anon comes back, having survived due to an ancient spell. Jerga, absorbing the energy of humans, grows stronger. United, Anon and Ray face off against Jerga with the Unitarist support. Humans and Infernals form a united front, angering Jerga. Ray manages to weaken him, and together with Anon, they deliver the final blow, taking down Jerga for good. After the battle, Sasha and Misha, thinking Anon had passed away, rush to his side in tears. Ray and Misa share a heartfelt embrace. Anon, out of compassion, releases the clone creator, turning her ability into Anon's magic to prevent its misuse. Back home, everyone chills out, and Anon asks if his mom made his favorite food. And with that, the first season of the anime wraps up.